Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana and Robyn embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Today we're reading chapters 10 through 12 of Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn.
But first, previously on Wizard Team, uh, so the regents lead the funeral that is meant to honor the Legendborn who died in the battle in the Ogoth at the end of Legendborn. Um, Bree, as it's happening, Bree's emotions are being colonized by Arthur, who is showing her visions of the past when he was mourning other dead knights. Evan Cooper's parents demand answers for what happened in the Ogoth, and also demand to know like where Nick is and why he isn't there, looking over or like presiding over the funeral. And the regents basically are like, it was Selwyn's fault, which makes Bree really surprised and angry. She has this public outburst, and in her anger, she ends up breaking Lark's hand as he's trying to like get her away. Tor comes for Bree, but the other Legendborn tell her to leave, basically.
Cool it
Just like
now, you
bye.
got to cool it
Um
now. Ooh, watch out. Sorry, I'm sorry. I don't know where that came from, but it fits.
so then William So then William tells Bree off for her behavior, but then also makes her tea. And they kind of discuss the regent's possible motive, which would they're guessing is to suppress Camlan to keep the different factions of the order happy. Both are hopeful that the right will put Bree in charge and allow her to actually like call the shots, but we'll see if that's the case.
It's so funny because we get a good I think the last episode, whatever chapter it is, they do a really good job of breaking down and like thinking through the strategy and like the political setup of like the Legendborn and the Regents and stuff. But then at the end, because we're about to just get straight into like some more fuckery, you're like, okay, I understand the Regent's
Mhm.
position now, but then it's like, no, but it's still bullshit, and it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be.
No, all of it is bullshit. Yeah.
Oh, um,
It just gets
wussing,
worser and
wussing.
worser.
So, we start chapter 10 thinking that we've seen, I don't know if we think we've seen the worst of it, but whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just, it is,
We've seen some
yeah,
things that are annoying and a little concerning, but nothing enough to make us not like them, but not enough to hate
yeah,
them, I think.
I don't
Maybe.
know. Hate is a strong word, but I'm there. I'm as close as I
Yeah.
can. I don't know of another word that,
Yeah.
fits it. So anyway, so Bree leaves Pembrey. I love to just say Pembrey because I'm a Jane Austen nerd and it gives me Pemberley vibes, and it's just so pretentious. Um so most of the when
Yeah.
she's leaving, most of the ceremony guests are gone, and there is an armored car waiting at the curb with Lark in the driver's seat. As Bree is describing this car that is like designed to be similar to like what the president's motorcade, an armored car is, with some magical ether kind of additions to it. She's talking about how she
Mhm.
first rode in this car on the way to Pembrey, and she had asked Lark at the time why she couldn't be why she couldn't just ride with the other Legendborn. And he says, and the armored car is named Beast, and so are the Beast, and so Beast 1 through 4. So they have 4 of these very expensive ass armored SUV bulletproof. Looks.
Mhm.
Bree says basically she thinks it could survive like a small missile attack. That they
Mhm.
are available to transport, or they were made or built or whatever to transport valuable members of the order like Bree and the regents. So,
Mhm.
okay, it's four of these armored cars. There are three regents, and then Bree, King Scion, Scion King,
Mhm.
whatever. Basically saying that the other awakened Scions from Nick at like the second level towards like three are not valuable enough.
Well,
Or like
I
why wouldn't they have more of them in the like I
because
kind of
I
get the
think
sense
it's
it's
because
like,
they
that's
if they die, then they have someone who can take their place. You know what I mean? Like there's a level of
yes,
like them being of the other scions and like squires being expendable that like the crown scion doesn't have because if she dies, then they all lose their power.
the whole
So
thing
it's
falls
just the whole
apart.
thing falls apart. So like I'm not saying
And
it's
my thing is like,
right, but I do understand the like their thought
and my
process is warped. The system is already broken, but within it, I understand
yeah,
the
and like
logic.
my thing is that it's like I get that, right? And obviously she is very important. I'm not saying that she shouldn't be in the beast. What I'm saying is it is just like another, it's like a reminder and like basically saying that they are replaceable and expendable
Mhm.
in a way that like, sorry to bring this shit up, but like former presidents still get secret service even though they are no longer the president. Like they may not get as much because the thought is like the threat is less, but for the rest of their lives, and they have been replaced. Like they've literally been, they are the
Mhm.
former, they're the new person head of the government, right?
I just
And
think
it's
that
just a matter of saying that like it's just like saying that you're sacrificed, we don't care. Next up, we'll get someone else. And it just is
well,
like for morale sake or whatever. It's just gross.
I mean, the thing is like they're soldiers, right? Like that's really what the scions are. They have all of this like there's all this pageantry around it and like but they're not actually all they fight they're created to fight demons. So that's their job. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
feel like Bree maybe to a lesser extent would need it if she had been trained,
But she would
but
still be in this.
she would definitely it's definitely for her, but I think there it's just a different again, I'm not saying that like I necessarily agree, but under the system that they created, not just the regions, but just like that Arthur and Merlin like put in place,
Yeah.
and like how the magic works, I I understand the logic, I guess.
And that's and yeah, so I don't want to go like too far because I do understand like the logic. It's just kind of like the it's what we talked about with like the messaging of
Mhm.
especially for someone like Bree. Um it's just like it doesn't feel, and I'm not saying they all get their own armored car,
Right.
and I understand like even, if it's like the the designated survivor type of thing and you don't want everyone in the same spot at the same place. But even if it's like Bree is like, I don't know if you do that inverted pyramid, right? So like one rides with like how many nights are there? 13?
13, yeah, including
Yeah, so like Bree
mhm.
rides with like the 13th ranked night, and then
Mm,
you know what I mean? And you kind of like stagger it or whatever.
yeah.
It just feels like it would have just been easy. And then the other part of this too is like they're so like Bree is so valuable that they have this like sounds like $1 million plus car.
Mhm. It
Um,
reminds me, and I hate to say it, but it reminds me of that car that
Winter
Edward
Soldier.
got Bella
Oh,
before she got turned, before they they graduated and he was like, "Here, have this, like,
I don't
tank."
remember that car, but I love that my brain was like
That's like
Nick
how
Fury's
break I don't
car
know
in.
Oh, you were
Winter
thinking of,
Soldier.
Winter Soldier? That's
Yeah.
probably a better one, but for some reason in my head, every time I read it, I just think about, like, that car that like, she's I guess maybe it's the beginning of Breaking Dawn, which is crazy that I remember this, but this is why I don't need to reread these books. She, like, is at the gas station, and there's some dude who's, like, checking out her car, and it's, like, explaining that basically Edward thought she would need her of all people, needed a
That
car
level
that's
of
basically, like, meant for presidents, and but anyway, we can
but
move on.
she's also, like, driving herself. Anyway,
Right.
so, yeah, and so then it's again, like, she's so valuable that literally Lark is the only person in the car to protect, and he's driving.
Yeah.
Y'all could
No
get some
other
more
mage guard
Merlins?
y'all couldn't put one other mage guard in
One other
there?
person in there?
I don't
Have someone
understand.
driving and have Lark in the back to, one, make her help them, like, build a bond since they want him to be the king's mage and also, like,
Yeah. The
have his
thing
hands
is
free,
I
whatever.
it's hard because it's like, sometimes our commentary goes into, like, what it's hard
The
because it's
point
like
is
we know what the actual, like, plan is, so it sounds like we're being like, "This is incompetence," but, like, we know that it's not, but it still, like, feels that way, if you know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like, where's the logic? But the logic is they don't actually, like
want to
they're
protect
trying to
her.
set her up for to fail, like, that's the point. Um, but it's just so funny because it's just every time I'm just like, "What are y'all doing? Like, where" y'all keep saying this, but
Right. So Bree gets in the car. Lark is driving them to the lodge. Bree apologizes to Lark as she looks at, like, his bandaged hand, and then he's like, "I need to apologize too because I knew about Cell and I didn't tell you." And she's like, "Why?" And he's like, "Because Cell told me not to tell you." Cell was worried about what Bree would do before the Regents arrived if she knew that Erebus and Sestra were coming for him. Um,
I mean, yeah, because
yeah,
I hate to say it,
yeah,
but and honestly,
she proved him right.
yeah. The thing is Bree doesn't actually care about the order, and she can't really make herself care
No,
either. Like, she cares about fighting the demons, and she cares about her friends, but all that other shit does not matter to her, and she cares about finding
and I
Nick.
think yeah, and I think it's, like, hard too because she is trying to convince herself that the things that she cares about is caring about the order and is what's best for the order.
Mhm.
But whenever she calms down and someone, like, explains it to her when she's not just fuming, she's like, "Oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. Oh, I do see why they," you know what I mean? And it's
Yeah,
like just because to her the order is her friends. The order, she's not been around, you
yeah,
know?
and
Um,
she's not bought in the same way, and, like, you can't really expect her to be because this is not because of the way she was introduced and when she was introduced, and then also just, like, how she became the Scion of Arthur in the first place, like, there's just so many different reasons for her to not be bought in on this whole thing, um, and it's not really, like I'm not even mad that she's not, like, it's all bullshit, but, like, I think that it makes it hard for her to navigate because she doesn't believe in it, and so she has to try to, like, make herself believe in it or at least pretend to believe in it, and I don't think she's fully
yeah,
admitted to herself that she doesn't believe in it.
right. Like, she has made herself believe in it by flattening the order into the southern
What
chapter and this, like, what's happening at the lodge, right?
Yeah.
She, like, knows about the other chapters, she knows about the regents. This is their first time. I mean, this is a lot of people's first times ever, like, seeing the regents, but, like, in general, she has, like, they didn't know she existed
Mhm.
until a month ago. And so she has not she hasn't felt any of the, like, again, like we what we were saying, like the systemicness of, and like the system that is the Legendborn.
Mhm.
Um, so Kane, sorry, Lark is letting her know, like, yeah, you know, Sel was worried about what you would do, and he knew immediately that they were going to come for him, and so he ran before they could get him. and he's also like, and he's too smart to leave a trail, so they're probably not going to find him. Like, I this entire chapter slash scene, I really am like, again, I talked about this like last episode. I like Lark. He's on the
Yeah.
wrong side,
But he's
but
not
not.
even really
He's
on the wrong
not.
side. He's
Yeah,
literally just
yeah.
doing his job. Like
He's just doing his job.
he's doing what he's been taught to do, and it's like you can tell that even though he and Cell were a little like there was some, tension or like antagonism between the two of them. Most of that was Cell because that's just who he is. He
How he
can't get
is.
along with anyone to save his life. Um and him telling Lark is like, clearly you trust him because he wouldn't have said anything to Lark. So it's also kind of a like indicator for Bree too that like this dude is trustworthy. Like, yeah, he didn't tell you about Cell, but he also didn't tell anybody else that he was running either.
Yeah, and he like didn't tell anyone, and he has like enough faith that it's not like, oh, I didn't say anything because he's about to get snatched up. Like he has faith that
Right.
like Cell is gonna get away.
Right.
Like, he's
And
like, yeah,
it
I
seemed
mean,
and from
do
that,
what
like
you gotta
there's
do.
the implication that he believes that Cell shouldn't
Yeah,
be
exactly.
arrested. So yeah. And he's just like he's very chill. I think it's funny too because honestly, he's the least like dramatic Merlin that we
Yes.
see. He's the most like well adjusted, at least at the as the amount that we see him in this book. Who knows what will happen like in the future, but he's the most chill and I appreciate that. He's very logical. He's not really letting nobody ruffle him in the way that
And
these
he's
other
also
Merlins.
very like, I mean, I'm trying to get to this point too, but like
Mhm.
he he's very clear-headed
Yeah.
in a way that like I think we've only really seen with like William, but even still William, no, he's just like he reminds me of William,
Mhm.
with an accent. And
Mhm.
so he says like, so they're driving and he's like, do you really think that Davis kidnapped Nick and risked all of these once born lives on purpose? And I think the on purpose is important because it's like italicized, like he emphasizes like on purpose because he's having a hard time. I think it's one of those things where, and it's a white supremacy thing in general where,
Yeah.
like they are always underestimating or not putting infantilizing people who should not be infantilized and like trying to find excuses for, to
Yeah.
just like not villainize
Excuses
them
and, like
basically.
yeah. And, like,
And
like, Davis has a reputation, right? Like, he's
yeah,
one of the more, visible, like, members of the order. He's in the line of Arthur. He is, like, presents as being so bought in on, like, the order, which I don't think that he isn't. Like, I still think what he did kind of shows that he is, but just in a more selfish way.
yeah,
Um And so he's considered like this trustworthy dude. And so then to like hear that this happened, especially from someone who is not like doesn't come from the order, even though obviously there are other people who are in the like um who can give testimony, but Davis spoke directly to Bree and it's not like anyone else was really there.
yeah,
Um yeah, it's like he and it comes up a couple like a few times in this like span of chapters of people being like, "Oh, I can't believe he did it." And I can't believe, you know what I mean? Just
yeah.
like not or not Lord Davis. He's such a like, you know,
He's so bought in. He's so,
upstanding.
yeah,
Yeah.
the model vassal basically.
Mhm.
Um, which is again like
Or
what
liege.
extreme, like it also means that he's a model for extremism. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
if he's so bought in, then yeah, he can really like twist that stuff. And like Bree is like, he told me straight from his mouth, like, yes, this is
Directly.
like true, directly. And she's like, do you not trust me? And he's like, well, trust but verify. Which is just like I think important for also me. I noted this for also me because I'm like,
Mhm.
I mess with Lark. Like he's
Yeah.
just doing his best. Um,
And I
it's
think he
like
has a healthy, like, skepticism in general.
yeah,
Like, he's not really taking anybody at their word.
exactly, exactly. And I think it's one of those things where it's kind of the flip side of Bree, where he's new to the southern chapter, like what's been going on, the ins and outs of it. So he's like hearing all of these things and it doesn't jive with what he knows, but he also knows that he doesn't know Davis. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
he's not in that inner circle. So it's very possible. It just feels from what he's heard to be hard to believe.
And I think too, he kinda emphasizes the once born lives part because that's, like, the whole part of their whole
Yeah.
that's the whole thing.
Yeah. He's like,
So then it's
I could
like, how could
maybe
he
if
do
you
that?
said he was doing some sketchy shit to like shore up power or whatever, okay, but like
Right.
opening gates and endangering once born lives on purpose is like
Mhm.
just a bridge too far.
Yeah.
So then Lark gives Bree, he's like, I got a gift for you. And he gives her these fingerless gloves that his father, or these fingerless leather gauntlets that his father makes. Like he said, his father makes this armor for Merlins. It's very like high quality or whatever. And Bree is like, she's happy, flattered. I don't know what the word. She's moved by the gift, but she's also skeptical about it because she's like, "Why do you think I need armor?" And he's like, "Well, I just heard that you just started with a sword and you haven't had much time to train. And like some Merlins do use armor until they get like very confident in their ability to like forge ether armor, right?"
Mhm.
And so then because it's something that she's very sensitive about, it's like, does everyone know? It's like, girl, yes, because
I
you just
mean,
got here. You've only
first
been
of
here a
all
month.
first of all, and, I mean, so she doesn't know how because I think that it's not but it's also not clear that or really what it is that Tor is a mole, and so she's
Yeah.
definitely telling the regents all of this stuff, um, and yeah, but he also, like, doesn't rub it in her face, and so I think
No.
that
And I
also
think what's
endears
funny slash interesting about this to me is that Brie is like there is a mole and she is telling and like Tor is like telling her business and stuff like that. But he's also trying to be very like calm about it
Mhm,
because it is not a crazy thing to assume.
right.
Like
Or to
they
even be
know that
happening,
you
like
yeah. They also like all of these people, like Merlins in particular, have been training for this like literally their entire lives.
mhm,
Even the like pages and stuff that are maybe not like super deep into it or they're kind of newer families, like the more modern families that we talked about, like in the factions and stuff,
mhm,
they've been around enough to have some level of training or like, you know what I mean? They're not coming in completely with that with no experience, no fighting, no training, no nothing. And Bree did. So it's like, girl,
yeah.
it's not a big leap.
She's so impatient, I think, too, which
Yeah.
I get it. That's not even a, like, real knock on her, but I think that's also part of it is, like, it's weird I mean, I get it because it's weird because it's like you don't actually have that much time because it is Caroline, like, you have been awakened, but at the same time, like, it's not something you can rush. And not
And
to
it's
mention, she doesn't know this, but Arthur is definitely, like, messing with her.
messing with her. Yeah. But it's also just like it's not a it's if it wasn't Camlin, it wouldn't actually be a big deal that someone who just started
Right.
training 2 months ago isn't able to do ether armor.
Mhm.
If she was just some white girl from a long line of vassals or
Or
whatever,
even if she was,
nobody would be blinking an eye.
even if she was Nick's, squire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if he was actually the scion of Arthur. Or even if he was Lancelot and she wasn't Arthur, you know what I mean? Like, if that had actually happened, she would still need time to practice.
Yeah. It just is not.
She wouldn't have saboteurs in her sharing her body, but it would still take some time.
It just, yeah, it just takes time. And he's not, Lark is not judging her for this. He's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you know, it just makes sense. And
Mhm.
let's get you as prepared as possible. So she puts on these gauntlets. They feel like they're made for her. She says thank you. She feels much more confident and comfortable. She's wondering if they'll help her from like keep her from burning herself with her bloodcraft, root magic. Um, and they are driving along in silence. And I'm just thinking, like, how far is the lodge? I couldn't remember, but it felt like there was, I don't
It was
know,
a
maybe
ways
this all
away, I think.
happened pretty quickly. But I'm like, how, you know,
I think same state, but not, like, up the street. It's not, like, on campus.
see, and I was thinking, like, is it the same city? Okay, so it's like a different city. They got to go out. Okay, anyway, so they're driving, and then boom, car gets attacked by demons, gets flipped over this big ass armored vehicle with like reinforced steel, like bulletproof windows, 6-inch thick glass. Like the thing is a, a, a beast, as
Yeah.
it is titled. Um, and it's rolling. And then I don't really understand. Like, so just imagine like the car is on its side or whatever, and Lark is using
I
his
think it
like
was on its it was, like, straight up,
straight up
like, on the trunk, like, 2 wheels, you know what I
two
mean?
wheels in
Like,
the
it went
air.
from
Okay,
yeah, 2 wheels in the air.
okay. So Lark is getting out of his seatbelt and moving around. Um, Bree is getting like hit by like like some cold coffee falls on her. She gets hit by it. She gets stabbed in the shoulder by a pin. You know, not like anything that's going to cause like real damage, but you know, it's just like a lot happening, a lot of
Yeah.
sensory overload. Lark is like kind of hanging above her when a part of the car gets ripped off, and he unbuttons her seatbelt or like kind of gets her unbuckled, but then is like stay in the and pushes a button as he gets, I'm assuming like the hand of God, like a
Just
giant,
getting
it just
yanked
throws
out.
him,
Yeah.
just yanks him from the car. It's like kind of how it's like he's literally getting pulled out of the car.
Yeah.
Um, so then this behemoth of a car, the partition pulls up, shut like, and it shuts Bree into the like backseat kind of thing. So it's like it says, it basically seals her into the armored cabin, and she can just hear yelling and action and screeching. She's like, obviously, he's fighting demons right now,
Right. But
and
also,
Bree's like,
like,
oh,
she's being tossed around.
yeah,
'Cause that's the other thing. It's like they're fighting, but it's also like the demon or whatever is still trying to get to
trying
her.
to get
So
her.
the thing so that's it's one of those things where it's like, yes, she's safe, but is she if she's being tossed around in an armored box? Like is that actually like yeah, it's just terrifying, honestly. Could not be
Yeah,
me.
like she's in this darkened cabin. It's being tossed around every time she's trying to get her bearings. It'll flip over again. We just talked about how Lark thinks it's, gives it, she has her like gauntlets on, some like armor that she doesn't need to like pull ether from.
Mhm.
She is feeling a way about not having all of this training. he has pressed a button in this multi-million dollar car to keep her and basically like a black box type of like keep the goods safe
Yeah, and keep her
until
out of the
someone else can
way.
come and help out and keep her out of the way. Again, can we also talk about how we open this book
She
with
puts herself
Cell?
immediately in danger.
Yeah, she puts herself immediately in danger, and Cell is in between her and Hell Foxes, who are like sucking the ether out of the air, like to the
Mhm.
point where he says, like, "Oh shit," like you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like he is like, "Oh, this is." And William, the one, a person that she very much trusts and appreciates his advice, says he cannot fight well if he's worried about you,
Mhm.
right?
That went in one ear and right out the other.
So Bree thinks, you know what Lark needs right now? With his bandaged hand that I broke fighting
Mhm.
against demons after he yelled at me to stay in the car while he was being pulled
Yanked
out,
out.
yanked out by a giant demon. He needs my help.
She's so hard-headed,
The help that I can provide, even though
and I
I
love her.
cannot control my power, don't really know what's
What are you
going on.
going to do to help a Merlin? Please, be so serious.
So she uses Arthur's strength. And this is like part of me as I'm like reading this part, I'm like, well, maybe she can't just like, just start throwing bows. Like she's got Arthur strength. Like she'll do something. But like you also think about like I think about Luna, my dog, beautiful creature that she is, with all of her strength. What does she do? She tears her own ligaments. She just
Mm,
fucks herself up. She hurts
yeah.
herself because she don't know because she don't got thumbs. She don't have no sense. Bree, and also like sorry, but the multi-million dollar beast vehicle is designed to keep things out.
Right.
Obviously, it's got some give and stuff so that you can get out. Like, you know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
you can't come in unwanted, but it's not designed the same way if you're trying to force yourself out. So she's able to like bust open the cabin. Luckily, hopefully, whatever, there is a sword that's just like kept in under the seat, basically, and she grabs that too. So at least she's not like just like
Unarmed.
come at me, bro. I'm gonna karate chop you with the 3 weeks worth of training that I have. Um, she brings some kind of backup.
She's gonna actually chop you with the 3
Yeah.
weeks of training she
And
has.
I am, you know me, I am pro gun control. I don't think we need guns, but could a gun help against a demon? Because I just keep that thing on you. You know what I
Maybe if
mean?
it was ether infused.
I don't know. I'm just the sword is cute, but you also have to be trained
Yeah.
to use the sword,
It's
and
much
there's
more
a
close.
proximity.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's a proximity that you need for a sword.
Mhm.
To which I'm like, Bree, you might have been better off just hanging out and waiting for some reinforcements. I don't know if because of, and I can see this as like there's a lot going on. There's all these sounds. Like she knows that he's fighting by himself, and she's like running kind of off of instinct. And we know that like long term thinking isn't really there.
Right.
But she, in the same way that Porshèa was saying last week, that like Bree will jump to like, oh, Morgaine,
Mhm.
she also isn't jumping towards like reinforcements will be on the way.
I
Like
mean, I
there is a way for them to know when something's up, or a way for them to communicate with like, yeah, it's just her
yeah.
and Lark, but that doesn't mean that it will only be just her and Lark.
I mean, so this is the thing, is like the first attack, I think this is Erebus.
Oh, definitely.
Like, he's doing, and he's not even doing it to get Bree, he's actually doing it to draw Cell out.
Yeah.
So, I don't know that, but I also don't know that she knows what they're like. It's not like she's in a motorcade. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that she knows where the other mage guard are or what they're doing. I think she definitely thinks that it's just the two of them on their own. Um,
Yes.
but yeah.
I just do think that, like, again, she doesn't know this because she's only been here a hot second. But even if it is just them on their own, I do feel like, one, she talks about like the speed of Merlins and stuff. Like, I feel like Merlins and mage guards would be trained to do what they can until reinforcements come and like know how to like trigger reinforcement. Like, he was able to like
Yeah,
hit a
I'm
button
sure. There has
to
to be
be
some kind
like,
of protocol.
he
But also
probably,
especially because Bree, like, again, like,
yeah.
yeah, there have to be other people nearby.
And like also just like hit a button because, like, what if they got into a, car accidents happen. I mean, it's a monster of a thing, but like
Mhm.
a homing signal beacon, whatever. Like the button you press at the bank when the robbers come, like the silent alarm, you know?
Yeah. I mean, maybe that button that he pressed that, like, closed Bree in was
It
also an alarm,
also sends
like a
a
call.
alarm like shit's going down. He had to like
Mhm.
armor the cabin or whatever.
Mhm.
It feels like, not to say that she should have this like fully formed, but it feels like there should have been like a,
Safety, talk. Like you're
or
in the
just like in her
airplane.
mind, like, do I think he can, like, should I sit here for a little bit longer? Should I give him a chance
Mhm.
to handle it? Or do I just like jump into the fight, right? I don't know. Just some sort of something that she does not think about. She busts out of the car. She has the sword. She tries to pull ether, and her flames are like,
No.
she was like, oh shit,
It's just Arthur's still playing in her face.
playing in her face. But also, she's also looking at Lark, um, whose shield is battered but holding, and she notices that he's fighting one-handed, and she feels immediate guilt because he's fighting one-handed because she broke his hand.
Mhm.
Um, and then the foxes are still like able to suck the like shield away, and like that the big ass Uchol is like pounding on it. This whole scene gives me very much, maybe not in game, but the start of, what was it, Infinity War, when they're
Mm.
at in
Everybody's
Wakanda.
getting
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
they're trying to bust down the shield. They have all those people
Mhm.
running at it. The hell foxes are the aliens that are just running into the shield, killing themselves.
Right.
They finally break down Lark's shield. And then this big ass Uchel, who's like kind of looks like the Thing and is made out of rocks, I believe, or
Yeah.
boulders. I'm
Yeah. Like, yeah. Is like
the
human
the Thing,
shape,
right? That's what.
but giant and, like, made of rocks. So,
Yeah,
yeah, kinda like the thing.
from the Fantastic
I was
Four. Isn't that?
Mhm.
Is he?
Yeah.
Is he the Thing?
I was think yeah,
Okay,
that's what he's called.
that's his name.
I didn't picture the thing, but, like, yeah. I'm trying to think of, like, I just maybe like a golem?
Mm,
Like a like the but I don't know.
I don't know, but yes.
Not a Lord of the Rings, not Gollum like Lord of the Rings, but like
Oh, okay,
a golem, like the
gotcha.
rock, you know?
Creature. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find a good Oh, there's a Pokemon. Portia
Ooh.
would have known that. We're such nerds. Here, I'll
Speak for
link this.
yourself. I am watching sports.
Yeah,
Boom.
it's very nerdy.
Amani says, turn around and look at your wall before you deny being a nerd. And behind me is a lot of
It's
nerdy
all
ass
stuff.
art.
Yeah.
You know, just me and Miss Marvel
Mhm.
and Storm and Shuri
Yeah.
hanging out. The Uchel, I was listening to this on audio while walking my little Uchel, and the way she pronounces it, I'm never gonna get it. My my mouth doesn't form the shapes necessary to be able to pronounce this correctly. But y'all know what I'm saying. So they collectively bust down Lark's shield, toss him 40 feet. Very reminiscent to when Dud Davis got his back broken and tossed
Aw,
across the forest.
got cracked by a demon.
Yep, yep. Lark gets his back
I
cracked
think
by a
I
demon.
think Lark only gets his head. Like, he's not
Yeah,
he's his spine is okay.
he might have a concussion. You know, somebody's
Yeah.
got to wait with like got to make sure he doesn't fall asleep uh, supervised, but it's all right.
Mhm.
Um, and then the demon turns to Bree and is like, awakened Pendragon. So this is how I'm like, yeah,
It
Erebus
was
definitely sent these
Erebus. It
motherfuckers
was
because like,
Erebus.
how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? Sorry.
Mhm.
And so she tries to call Ether, or she does call the Ether, and it shoots up the sword. So she at least looks like she is about to do some damage. She don't really know what
Well,
she's
I don't think
doing,
she
but she.
does. She doesn't call ether. She tries to and it doesn't work, so she calls her root.
Oh, is it okay?
So the way she kind of delineates it is the ether is Arthur's magic and it's
Right.
blue,
And then the
and then
root is her
root is
the red
her
magic.
Vera's magic. Yeah, that's red.
Yeah. And then before she can start to before she can put up a fight, she sees a blur and Selwyn Kane. I wrote this as Selwyn Iron Man's his way into the fight. And what I mean is he swoop, 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 hell foxes fly, and then he lands dramatically in between her and the fox, or he beats up the big demon, lands
Right, doesn't he, like, stab it in the
dramatically.
eye or something?
He does a whole lot of stuff before we can even really figure it out. Poor
Yeah.
Declan. And it's gone. And then he like lands in between her and the hell foxes, looks over his shoulder and says, "Run." Boom, boom, boom. Like, do you think that he sits in his room or his tree, probably his tree, and he's like, "I'm gonna land and I'm gonna turn. No," and I'm gonna say,
It's
"Go."
just
No, I'm gonna land and I'm gonna turn. I'm gonna say, "Run for your life," or I'm gonna land and I'm gonna turn and I'm gonna say, "Turn out." You think he like practices? I think he
I think it's
practices.
just innate. I think it's just who
Nah,
he is as a person. I feel like these are the moments that makes me wanna see this on screen.
yeah,
Like, all of the fight scenes,
same.
but particularly Selwyn's, like, brand of drama, like, I just wanna see, like, 'cause it's so funny.
But I also I feel like if it will it be funny?
Probably not. It probably won't be funny on that. It'll feel, and not even that it doesn't feel like it fits here, it's just because, like, we know Cell is just like this all the time, and he gives,
He
like
literally is an anime character in
yes,
an Americanized story. Like he just it's like Who Shot Roger Rabbit or
or Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Yeah.
Who Framed
Like, where
Roger
it's, like,
Rabbit, yeah.
different yeah,
Where it's like all of a sudden there's just like a literal
or
cartoon
Space
character.
Jam.
Yeah, and you're just like, "What?"
Yeah,
Or Pleasant, is it Pleasantville or
it's
whatever,
one
where
of
they like
those
all of a sudden there's just like one pop of color, like there's one person in color and
yeah.
everyone else is in black and white. Like that's
Maybe
what
it's
sells.
because it's contemporary fantasy and not, like, secondary. Because 'cause I'm trying to think. Because it's not like he's definitely one of a kind, but I mean, like, there are other, like, brooding, dramatic, like, quote, unquote, "dark" characters in other fantasy stories, but I also think that I think they're taken more seriously. I don't think Bree takes Cell serious like she does, she likes him, she does I think she respects him, she thinks he's powerful, all of that, but I also don't think that she takes him seriously in that way, so I feel like that also is kind of what makes it funny. Because 'cause I'm like, you read scenes, it's not like the scene itself is um particularly unique in the way that he
Yeah.
enters and, like, you know what I mean? Like, you just mentioned Iron Man, or, like, there are other, like, things where this kind of thing happens, but something about this is just like,
It's
"Here you
because in
go."
Iron
Like, it's
Man
not
and stuff like that, like, everyone is, like, at least in the action scenes, everyone's on the same level.
Mhm.
Everyone is, like, riding the same vibe. But even when they are in depth of, like, she's holding the sword with all her might, calling on her, like, great-great-grandmother's magical protection,
Mhm.
and there is a a stone demon, a Gorma what do you call it? A
Oh, a golem.
golem talking about contain her. Even in that heightened, dramatic ass situation, Cell swoops in and is like, "I'm here to bring the drama." Like, bitch,
Yeah.
the drama is
We already
here.
have it.
How did you how did you
No,
take it
and it's
to
like,
11?
yeah, and it's one of those, because it's like, it
We're
honestly,
at
that scene
10.
is so do his entrance is very dope. Like, I actually, like, it
Yeah,
makes you wanna, like, again, if you're watching it on screen, it's one of those moments that makes you wanna, like, cheer, but
yeah.
it's also just like, Selwyn is such a, like, why is he this way? Like, it's just
It's and then you know what it is? It's like if this only happened in scenes like this, then fine,
right.
but he always
He's
enters.
he is like this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There will also be a scene of her just like walking to class or leaving the lodge, and he is going to swoop down
right.
from
And also,
above.
and I guess it's not just Bree who doesn't take him serious. I think it's like all of them are just kinda
Yeah,
like, "Well, here goes Sel, like, here he goes with his dramatic ass." Like, nobody is feeling
yeah.
like, "Oh, he's
And they
so,"
take him
because I think what it is,
seriously. They just
yeah,
also are
they're just,
like, it
like,
doesn't have to be.
exasperated. They're exasperated by him. And I think also, here's what it is. Again, like, it's the tone too, and the way that he's introduced versus other times it would be, again, not that obviously Bree does feel attraction to him, but in other kind of, like, stories, all of this drama would just be like, "Oh, he's so sexy," and Bree is like, "I'm not gonna listen to you." Like, that's literally, she's just like, "That was cute, but actually." Yeah, so I think it's also the reactions of other people to him that makes it, like, hit in the way that it does.
Here on Wizard Team, it's no surprise that we love books. We also love supporting the independent bookstores.
With our bookshop affiliate link, you can not only get all the books on your TBR, but you can support indie bookstores and B&C at the same time.
And if you're not sure what you want, that ain't no problem. Check out our The Plot Thickens list full of recommendations from none other than Porshèa herself.
Head to www.bookshop.org/shop/Black Nerds Create to treat your shelves.
Treat your shelves.
Oh, that's nice. That's
Oh
clever.
my goodness.
That's clever. So yeah, like I said, Bree, of course, does not listen. She does not run. Which is, that's just like one of my favorite kind of, like, in chapters, like, run. I don't run. Just like,
Yeah.
of course not. You hard-headed child. Um,
And like the other thing too, I'm sorry. We just talked about all like Cell's dramatic ass entrance or whatever. But then he immediately is over Bree shit. He's like,
right. He's like, "For
could you
one
just
time." He's just like, it breaks the
just
whole, like,
run?
it breaks the, like, you know, because she doesn't listen, it breaks the, not facade, but you know what I mean, like, the tension of, like, the
Yeah.
moment. He's just like, "Ma'am, could you just one time in your life listen when I tell you something?" And she's
Just
like,
do what I do.
"No."
Yeah. When I
Um,
practiced this in the mirror, I said run and you ran.
and you
And then
ran.
I saved you. Come on.
And she's like, "Oh, well." So she steps up beside him. He again is just like, "Can you please?" But instead, but then the Hell Foxes are starting, so Cell, like, swings back so that they're back to back. Um, And Bree is still annoyed with him, which is like something I really appreciate about the scenes with them, especially like the first half of the book is like they clearly have a lot of other things that need to be addressed, but they're able to put it aside in like moments like this where it's like that like it's important, but it's not like a priority right in the second. Um so she's also able to acknowledge that like she's glad that he's here and that he's okay. Um But before they can start fighting, the foxes like suddenly retreat. Cell tells Bree to hide her root, but again, Bree is a hard-headed little girl and is like, "Why?" He's just like, "Ma'am," like, and other like in her head, she's not thinking like, "Oh, he sees something that I'm not seeing." Like his senses are, remember, way more like
Heightened or
dialed up, heightened than hers are, and she's just like, "Why?" So she only douses the root when she realizes that the other Merlins are approaching. And so then here goes Zhao being a hater again, like he always does. He kind of like appears in front or jumps in front of or between, sorry, jumps between Cell and Bree and is like accusing Cell of orchestrating the attack. Like they're just kind of doing the back and forth antagonistic situation. Cell gets under Zhao's skin and then he goes to attack. And then Bree is like, stops him and accidentally burns him with the root that she did not completely douse. Cause, it's fine.
secrets
It's
out. I mean,
fine.
it was an open secret
It's
at this point anyway, but
yeah, it
like
was like it's not like they didn't know, but like, ma'am.
they hadn't seen it.
Um, yeah.
Plausible deniability or whatever.
So Zhao was like, shocked by it. But then Erebus shows
I
up.
also like that he kind of like yelps when
Yeah,
he's
he's
supposed to
like,
be
"What the hell was that?"
bitch.
Like yeah.
He
Like
like
just don't be a
screeches.
hater. Like
Yeah.
yeah, you can do your job without all this hateration. So Erebus turns up and so it kind of makes Zhao straighten up and he leaves to go deal with the I think he maybe goes to help Lark. They're like loading Lark into a car so that he can be taken to be healed. And
Poor
so,
Lark.
but Erebus, you kind of see him take interest in Bree's root and kind of comment on it, which is interesting. Like Bree kind of expresses that his interest seems more scientific than like Isaac Sorensen, who was more like predatory in her mind, which doesn't make it better, honestly.
Mm-mm.
He is someone who has been reading a lot about like uh the medical racism and like experimentation. That's sometimes worse.
Worse.
Sometimes you want the I mean you don't want either, but like scientific is
But at
not
least in the awe
it's
of
not
it, your humanity is
right.
not completely lost. They're not like,
Right.
let's strap you down onto a table and see
Right. Like the science
what else you
it
can do.
yeah. It being scientific does not make it less dangerous. And also, given that we know who Erebus is, um, it's definitely him kind of coveting the power that she has. Like that's what he's been kind of waiting for is this power. Um, so there's definitely like a hint of
You in
that.
danger, girl.
Yeah. So then Erebus accuses Cell of setting the demons on Bree. And not in like a like you did this, but more in a like more suggests it. And Cell is kind of like be serious, like I didn't do this. And uh then kind of brings up again that like the possibility, I'm gonna butcher it, but of the Goruchel, so the another demon like Raz. They've been talking about like there's a possibility that there's more in the order. And so Cell is kind of like, do you trust all of your people? He then uh brings up like, is there anyone, what about on the council? Anybody on the council? And Erebus is like, all right, bro, like actually relax, like calm down. You know what I mean? Before you actually get yourself into more trouble than you're already in. And so then Cell goes, the more games then. Like he's just like, he's over it and he's just like, look, somebody's in there. There's so many other like people that could be behind this, that like you blaming me just does not make any sense, basically. And he's very much over it. Again, we all know, we as in the
What?
us, the audience, having read this book before, we all know this was Erebus.
Yeah.
Like, and the whole, and again, I think when I reread it, because I reread it like at the end of last year after we finished Legendborn, I didn't quite like, I had a feeling it was Erebus, but I didn't quite know why. But this time reading it, I'm like, it was to get Sel, because that's what they didn't necessarily need Bree to be attacked in this moment. Um,
But they
but
knew
they did need,
what would
but
bring him out.
right, they're like, he's somewhere around here for sure, and
Hmm.
he'll know if Bree's in
They used
danger.
her as bait.
Mm-hmm. Ridiculous. Um, so now it's time for Sel to be arrested. They have these ether cuffs. They're like these big, heavy looking cuffs that will get rid of his ability to call ether and cut off his magic. And then Erebus reads, or doesn't really read the charges, but tells them the charges. So he's under arrest for 6 counts of negligence to the Southern chapter, 1 count each of gross negligence to your charge and to the crown. So in that case, to Nick and to Bree. 1 count of attempted murder of the scion of Arthur. So these are, and then so he's gonna have a trial. He'll be detained until his trial. Um, so basically, so Bree is confused because she's like, that's not what y'all said at the
At the
funeral,
funeral.
but that's the public thing, right? They can't really, especially because they're not quite letting people know the truth about like the lines right now and about Bree. Like, this is a little bit more in the weeds and also highlights some of their own gaps. So they're choosing an easier kind of story for like the public and like outward facing. But they're not actually holding him accountable for that. It's for a bunch of other things. Um so Sel is kind of like, this is also when he realizes like that that's what he's being scapegoated for. Um and he's saying like, you can use me as a scapegoat and you'll not only bury the war, you'll bury the betrayal of the order's most visible and loyal servant. Um so they're protecting Lord Davis and his reputation. And in like, it goes back to what we were talking about with Lark, kind of not really believing that he could have done this. But it's like uh, it's the, like, the white supremacy of like needing to protect um certain people, not only to protect him, but it's to protect them as well. Like, it's to protect their like
Hmm.
status and their power. Um if they find out that Lord Davis did this, there are a lot of other questions that come up, and they don't want to deal with that
Yeah.
on top of having to deal with the war and all that stuff. So it's just like protecting him and his reputation in order to protect themselves and protect the like larger framework of the order. Which Erebus doesn't deny. Like, Sel is like, this is, he goes lies, and then Erebus is like, and misdirection, yeah. He's like, yep, we see each other. Like, he's not he's really, yeah, he's not worried about lying to
Just.
them. So Sel is kind of like guessing that they're gonna blame it on Sel succumbing to the blood, just like his mother. Erebus is surprised that Sel has that information. Um and Sel is like, secrets don't stay buried forever, old man. And Erebus says some do and some should, which is curious.
It also just like, I mean, I don't know how many times we need proof or like reaffirmation of what the order is about and the regents, but it feels like at this point, Bree at least needs reaffirmation and reminding constantly that like it doesn't matter unless you have the title of regent, you are not safe. And even then, I don't know. But like, so I guess unless you have the title of Lord Regent,
But even
you're
then,
not
it's
safe,
like it's
especially
about
if you're still in the children's portion of
right.
this thing. Because like again, she keeps I'm Arthur the Scion, King Scion or whatever. Crown Scion. That's why I'm like, that sounds weird. It's because it's Crown Scion. Um, and fell as King's Mage. Like he is like and was picked to be. And what like you still know what happened to his mother, who was also
Mhm.
a
A King's
prodigy and
Mage.
picked to be King's Mage early and like it it does not protect you.
No. It's
It
the system, like,
and they
that's
will
what
still
they're
use you.
upholding.
Yeah.
That's what's important is,
Yeah.
like again, it's like I mean, it's like what you were talking about before when you're, talking about the beast and like them not really protecting the other scions, but it's like that it's not really about the individuals, it's about the
Exactly.
system itself and making sure that that keeps running. Like they are replaceable, they die, their little sibling or cousin or whoever becomes the next, like Fitz, he died, his brother immediately was called, so they're
Mhm.
not worried about that. They're like, we will always have more scions unless the crown scion is like
It's gone.
dies while awakened. So it's just like Bree is less expendable, but that doesn't mean she's not expendable.
And it doesn't mean that she can't be even if she's not expendable, even if she was like, don't touch her, like she can't be killed or whatever, doesn't mean that
Mhm.
she can't be used to further their own ends and she can't be
Right.
hidden away or shunted away or whatever. Like they're going like the narrative is going to be the narrative that they want. That's what's going to win out. And it just is um I don't know. There's a constant, like I said, there are constant reminders of this, and I don't know. I just feel like she knows, but she hasn't internalized it still, or
Mhm.
she keeps
And it's
thinking that
hard
there's
to
something.
and it's
Yeah,
hard to fully I think it's hard to fully understand if you
yeah. Again,
aren't in
she's
it
only been
as a
around for 2 months, 3 months,
couple
right?
months.
So it's
Yeah,
yeah,
like it's hard to fully and I don't and again, and I think the people who are telling her all of these things and who she hangs out with, they don't fully understand either. Like I think Cell of all of them understands the most. Um, but he's also bought into it. And he's just an antagonist. He's not gonna let nobody do nothing to him without getting a couple words in. He does not care in that sense. Like,
yeah.
Imma say what I feel. Imma still do what you told me to do because I've been conditioned to, but Imma say something about it. um, so Bree is like, I don't accept this, which is just like, girl, it's really not it's just hard because it's again, like we know the regions are gonna do what they're gonna do. They already have a plan in motion. And right now they're just kind of like managing or handling Bree until they get to that point. So it's just yeah, it's hard, but also it's just like you're not actually helping in the way that you're doing this because again, she's also especially in this moment, she kind of shows is very like obvious in the way that she is not actually bought into the order. So first, Erebus is like, uh you know, we actually took this testimony, like the charges that we actually gave him, like his real charges,
Mhm.
are from things that you and other Legendborn have said, like in your testimonies about the situation. Like, did these things not happen? Like, did Cell not try to murder you? Because they're bringing him up for on things that like did technically happen, but again, are misunderstandings in a lot of ways, and really like in a just system, he wouldn't get brought up on that. Like Bree is not tripping. Like they're clearly over it. You know what I mean? But
Mhm.
Bree is kind of like none of this is true. But Erebus is like literally reads sections of Bree's own
Mhm.
testimony out to her. So just all the receipts. And
My
then there's
favorite
a
thing is
moment.
she goes, But it didn't happen like that. It's like, no, it happened like that. It
It
just like the context is stripped
is
away.
different.
But you know,
Yeah.
you were
Um,
terrified. You really he he was really trying to kill you.
he
Like,
was
yeah.
100% trying to kill you. Like, straight up, that was his intention. You can't even say it wasn't his intent because it was. Um, and so so Bree kind of was like, she says, hold up, let me. So she's like, and even if Sel wanted to murder me, I wasn't the scion of Arthur then. As soon as the word leaves my mouth, shock travels through each of the Merlins around me. Sel's gaze snaps up, brows furrowed. Ramirez and Olsen blink rapidly, amber eyes wide. Several emotions race across Erebus's face, one after the other. Confusion, displeasure, annoyance, then pity. It's the pity that creeps into my throat, makes it tight. Crown Scion Matthews, Erebus's voice turns oddly gentle. You have always been the scion of Arthur. It was always you. And it's
Which
like,
is like, yes, this is technically true. It is factually accurate.
mhm,
But the like pity, or I don't know, the not the pity. The pity I think makes more sense, but the like shock and like, almost kind of like disgust that she would ever think of herself as separate from that,
mhm.
like that some of the mage guard gives, is like
I feel like
they grew up in this cult. They've been in they know
yeah.
no other way. I can't say that it's not like it doesn't make sense, but it's just like not like y'all are so insulated that you can't even fathom the idea that like learning the truth about your like lineage or paternity or whatever will take some time to fully settle into someone's like identity.
Mhm. And even that you wouldn't like separate
And
those
that you
things
wouldn't
cuz
want it.
again, and that you wouldn't want it. And that you wouldn't want it. Um None of them really understand the like how complicated it is for like it's not just, oh cool, I'm the scion of Arthur, like yeah, I have this power and I'm the king and like whatever. Like there's so many other layers to it. There's so much like trauma that's informed and like that comes from that generationally, that like it's not just, oh okay, yeah, I'm the scion of Arthur and now I'm like head of this like prestigious secret society and I have this noble like duty to defeat demons and whatever. Like that's not really where her thought, that's not what she thinks of when she thinks of Arthur. And like she's trying to figure out how to use the power that she has in order to like save the people that she cares about, but she's not like really worried about, and like can't really be, cuz she hasn't had the like time to be conditioned into this, which I don't think she should be, but she hasn't had it. She hasn't like really been able to process all of what she's learned. Like there's just been hella other shit going on.
And I think it's just impossible to be proud of something that was forced upon you through violence.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's not, the story isn't my ancestor fell in love. I hate those stories anyway, but like they like were in love and had a secret relationship and because of the times couldn't be out and open or whatever, but it was totally consensual and uh if it happened today they would have been happily ever after, like married and happily
Right.
ever. It was not that.
Right.
There's nothing in that when her line becomes the line of Arthur that is romantic or admirable or revered. Like even
Mhm.
if it was not like the stereotypical violent rape that it actually was, even if it was just, you know, slave and slave no, I don't know. It's still violent. It's still there's
Yeah.
no there's
There's no
no
way where it's not
to
that.
parse that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Bree then pivots because she's just so hard headed. It's so funny. So she pivots and she's like, "Well, then I dismiss these charges then as the king." And Erebus is like, "One, you haven't actually formally claimed your title yet. And then uh yeah, so then he's like, "Yeah, for what you haven't formally claimed your title, so you can't actually do this." Um and there's a moment where Bree kind of thinks she remembers like when she was first trying to infiltrate the order and Nick was
And
telling
being
her
hard
like
headed.
and being hard-headed, and Nick was like, "Well, in order for me to help you, I have to reclaim my title. I can't just, like, come in and start trying to find stuff." Like, so what she says is, "The line is law, but blood is not enough to conquer procedure." Which again, it's about like, they put all these things, they say all these things, but it's really about the system and that they've put in place. It's not really about the people. It's really about how the, like, cogs turn and who is, like, allowed to be in power and in what way and, all of that. Meanwhile, Cell believes he deserves all of this. So he's like, Bree, just like, please let me be arrested in peace at this point. Like, just let me go.
Yeah.
Um, he does not think
And
that
I
those
think it's funny because
particular
it's like it
charges
was
are
when
BS.
yeah, when he
Like,
thought they were trying to blame him for opening the gates, he's like, fuck that shit. No.
yeah.
But this, like,
He's like, that did happen. I
that
did
did
try to kill
happen.
you. And I wanted to.
Yeah.
So
The intent
what
was
can you
there.
yeah,
Impact
what can you
versus
say?
intent.
The intent was there.
The intent was there.
He doesn't care that like literally 30 minutes later he was trying to protect her. Like
No.
he's like, "Nah, I did want her dead." So that's valid.
And
Um
didn't feel any kind of relief when he found out that she wasn't the demon, just felt like, oh, you're dumber than I like.
I missed that moment where he was just like, "You are just I can't believe I thought you were a demon. You're so boring."
Oh,
Um Okay, so Erebus goes to finish cuffing Cell because he only has one cuff on. Bree grabs him, which makes all of the Merlins freeze. Erebus asks her to release him. So it's like this really tense moment where it like the power dynamics are kind of like pushing up against each other. They can't directly attack Bree. Um
yeah.
for all of like what's about to go down. They can't like directly harm her in that way. And so it's kind of like this moment of her flexing her power despite the fact that like she's actually but at the same time she does not have the upper hand. It's a very like yeah, complicated situation.
It's also really funny because in reading this, I have to keep reminding myself that Erebus is the Demon King
Right.
because it's like he also explains to her why this is politically unwise. Like, he's so good at his like double agentness.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
and I guess like also like just thinking about the long game because it's like at this point you really can't do anything, but it's like let her show her ass a little bit more in front of the mage guard because then they will always kind of be on your side and she will always look a little bit more and more unfit with
Mhm.
the like kind of rash decision she makes, but he still is like, all right, he's just playing both sides very well.
Yeah. Um So Cell demands that Bree lets Erebus go because again, she's not actually making things easier for
No,
either of them. Um,
not helping him
and
at all.
so yeah, and so she does, and Erebus puts the second cuff on him. Oh, so 1 second, while he's doing that, while Cell is telling Bree to like leave it alone, he is calling Ether with the one hand that's not cuffed just because he's so mad. He's not really doing it on purpose, but it's like this really like dramatic moment of like the ether kind of coming to him, it's lifting his hair. He's like, um, But then Erebus snaps the second cuff on him and his powers are gone. And then one of the Merlins, I think it was Ramirez, kind of mentions like they're specifically designed for Cell, so he can't owl shift either. Like he's stuck. Um and then Erebus has this moment where he kind of reassures Selwyn that he's doing his duty and protecting the order by letting himself be taken in. Um which again is just like that reinforcement of um like this indoctrination that they all go through, and he's like, no, you're doing the right thing, you're doing your duty, this is still heroic, you know what I mean, as opposed to like
And like we will take this into account, like
mhm,
every single episode of Law and Order when they're like, if you cooperate with us, we'll talk to the DA about your sentencing or whatever. It's
right,
like
exactly.
your his chance to kind of redeem his bad act.
Mhm. So then, like, they're taking Cell away, and Erebus and Bree are kind of just like waiting there. Erebus looks at the car that Bree broke herself out of, and kind of just makes this really weird kind of moment where he's like talking about Arthur's strength and talking about like when he was growing up and as he was training to become the seneschal, he always wondered like who would come out on top in a battle, me or King Arthur, which is like such a big, like, flag if you know that he's actually the Demon King.
Right.
Like, he's like, "Yeah, I've been waiting for this fight." Like, he's like, "I've always wondered in the battle between good and evil, like, who could throw the best hate? Who's
Who's
really,
gonna
like, gonna
win?
win? Who's gonna win?" Um, and, like
How powerful and strong are you really?
mhm. And, of course, all of this goes over Bree's head, but I think that that's one of the things I love about Erebus too, like and it's like what you were saying, like, he's doing a good job of playing kind of both sides, but he also just be saying shit like just outright. It's like and everyone like no one is really peeping what he's actually saying because of, you know, who he is and like his facade, but he's straight up like, "Dang, yeah, I really want to fight you right now." And Bree's like, is this a threat?" And he's like, "No, it's just an observation, you know. Just
I also
curiosity.
think
I'm just thinking."
it's it's interesting to think about like, is it not even just like is it a threat, but is it also his way of like subtly letting her know how powerful he is?
Mm,
That like it's not about you, Bree. I'm just curious about like what Arthur's strength can do up against me. Like I not like this Gorchel ass like golem that we just destroyed, which I guess like that, you know, Cell hit him in the eye one good time and he was done. But um not Roz, not like a full on demon, but me,
mhm.
Seneschal. I've been training for this. Like I want I don't think that it's that I'm not gonna say deep or like I don't think that it's that conscious.
Yeah.
I think everything he does is like methodical and thought through um to an extent, but I do think subconsciously he is also
It's the
saying like
chaos.
not only what yeah,
And, like, the like, he's a demon, like, it's the
he's a demon.
yeah. He enjoys the game of it too, just
It's the
like
yeah, it's the part that he goes on to explain to her a little bit later, just like
mhm,
it's can't help himself.
mhm.
And
Um,
when you think about it, when you think about sorry, just last thing,
yeah,
when
no,
you
you're
think
good.
about Erebus as just being kind of like the strongest of the mages, and that all of the mages are these Cambion Merlin, all of the Merlins are these Cambion holding off the demon side of them, and the strongest, most like disciplined, contained, like the best of the best daydreams about what it would be like to take you down in a fight. I'm supposed to let all these motherfuckers watch my back?
Right.
Like, don't trust none of y'all now. How many of y'all thinking
No,
like
for
this?
real. Yeah. It's concerning, to say the least.
Yeah.
Um, so but Erebus is like, I think, and the car pulls up and Erebus is like, "Alright. let's finally get you to this right. We've been on our way for a long time at this point. Um, so Bree gets in the car. She's feeling like she's multiple steps behind, which she is. But she's also still holding on to the idea that that will change after the right. Um, she's stressed about but she's also like so stressed about what's happening to Cell that she's like, I can't believe they expect me to just like be able to do this right now. um, but yeah, so Erebus starts driving to the lodge, and then Cell is taken in the opposite direction. Um, and Bree kind of has this moment where she wishes that Alice was with her because she would kind of, in her head, it's kind of like not 100% like she would know what to do, but it's like she would know what questions to ask, or she would know kind of like she might have an idea of what I should be thinking about right now or what I should be trying to do. Um, but um, so yeah, so then Bree is like, I won't let you keep him captive for things he didn't truly do after the rite. And then Erebus interrupts her and says, the rite is our mutual commitment to each other as regents and the king to come. It is the first step toward honoring who you are and oathing yourself to the good of the order. You would do well not to make your first act as king the release of an accused criminal. It would be better to command your forces toward more noble ends, the search for Nicholas Davis, perhaps. Um, so again, it's like what you were saying before about him kind of like educating her and like kind of advising her in some ways. Um, and also like kind of like, I guess, calling to the front again the fact that she's not fully like she's too busy thinking about what she wants and not necessarily what like the order needs as a whole, which again, I don't like, who cares?
Who
But
can blame
in this
her?
context, that's what he's understanding, that that's what is happening with her, is she's a lot more focused on her people specifically and not the system as a whole. Um, and so Bree kind of feels uncomfortable about that though, like just the idea that she's gonna have to choose between Nick and Cell in that way. Which as far as like the triangle goes, I feel like is a really good moment. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like it's very
Yeah.
it's not like a, oh, choose who you love type moment. It's just like a, what are your priorities going to be? And now you're kind of put in the situation where you have to choose like, who do you save? Which is crazy because she don't even really get to choose. She got to choose to save herself. So we just
Whoop.
but as like a
She
thing, I think
really
it's
doesn't
a,
have a choice.
she really, yeah, she don't actually have a choice. So she asks what'll happen to Cell. Erebus explains that he'll be taken to a shadow hold and will be treated respectfully, in quotes. And so it's a place for Merlins who are succumbing to their blood. Bree doesn't think that Cell is succumbing. She's like, someone more demon than human wouldn't help me. He'd enjoy watching my pain. Erebus is like, sorry, but what do you actually know about Merlins? Like, you all up in the Kool-Aid and you don't know the flavor. Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? Um,
What do you think
so
succumbing to the blood looks like?
yeah, he's just like, what are you even talking about? And so he says, whatever the erstwhile King's Mage has told you has barely scratched the surface of our kind, our abilities, and our role and our role in the order. Bree goes, I know it means his demon blood could change him. He says he could go feral, turn evil. And then Erebus says a simpler, less comprehensive explanation couldn't be expressed. He said, "Look, that
Said,
is
"Oh, he gave you
the like
Merlin one,
preschool
oh, not
version,
even in
literally."
yeah,
Like,
intro to Merlin for dummies."
right? He's he's like, "Oh, that's ugh, yikes." He says, "You think in terms of good or evil, but Merlin envisioned that his descendants could be both, with the oaths as safeguards. Demons are selfish, solitary creatures. If our latent demonic natures overcome us, we lose empathy, sympathy, kindness, humanity. Eventually, all that remains are the core hungers of demonia, the inescapable desires to create and consume human misery. Pain, chaos, anguish, demons have no choice but to be drawn to these things, and that is why we are haunted with the prospect of such a descent, and why we must contain Selwyn for his own good." He pauses and then says, "It is what his mother would want."
That explanation also shows you like a demon is not just going to murder you.
Mhm.
And she has just lived through some like really rough and traumatizing shit. And then also as a medium, gone back and relived some other people's really rough and traumatizing
Mhm.
shit. So she does understand like there are so many different ways to like feed off of, I mean, to just create human misery, but also to feed off of it. And like a really I don't want to say good demon, but a like someone who has really like succumbed to the blood doesn't mean that they're just going to go on like some mindless rampage. And a lot
Mhm.
of what it feels like demons can do or damage that demons can do is not at all mindless because you have to have a, I mean, the most miserable things take time
Mhm.
and like build up and like so like that like it's like playing with your food basically
Mhm.
like the more the if Cell was actually succumbing to his blood, the like coming to her rescue, the carryad, the like having her fall for me just for me to like like all of that would be a part of it. And she's just yeah, it's I mean also Erebus the Demon King knows very well
Right, like, he's
the,
also it's like
the
giving
games you
insight
could
into
play.
him too. He's like, "Yeah, I'm having a great time
We
right
love
now."
this shit. I'm having a good time. You over here
Um,
thinking I saved you, and I'm feeling full. You know.
right,
Well,
literally.
like,
Um, yeah, so again, he brings up, Cell's mom, Natasha, and says that they trained together. He says, Natasha was my counterpart in the academy. She was on the path to become King's Mage, and I was destined to become Seneschal of the Mage Guard. His mouth twitches, the barest hint of affection. It was Natasha who gave me the moniker Erebus from the Greek myths, as I would eventually command the Merlins who fight creatures from the darkest shadows. In turn, I called her Nyx, Greek goddess of the night. She moved like shadows fall, silent and swift. When he trails off, losing the words to memory or withdrawing from giving too much away too much. Um, I'm back to like that. They definitely that's definitely Cell's dad.
yeah,
I know
that's his
he's
boo
had
thing.
other conversations, but yeah, no, that they were in love, and I kind of feel like Natasha knew who he was.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised.
especially if it's like she gave him his moniker. Like, what was he
Yeah,
going as before? Or like, I'm curious about that.
and I thought that was interesting too because I was like, I thought that was just his name. Like, I didn't think that was a title,
Yeah,
nickname, whatever. What if Erebus's
yeah.
name is like John, um, Frank? Yeah, I think that that is a they were in love. It was complicated thing. I'm still
Mhm.
not sold that he is Cell's dad. I'm not sold on it. Like I think it's
Yeah, I'm not.
definitely a possibility.
Yeah. And I think if he is, then it also kind of gives more context into why Cell is so strong.
Yeah,
He's like Cambion plus. He's got more demon than human.
yeah.
He would hate that. Um
Oh, poor baby. And again, like I think I said in one of these previous episodes, I don't know what exactly it is, but I do know that it is the option that is going to hurt Cell the most
Mhm.
because of who Tracy is
Yep,
and
100%.
how she loves to hurt my baby.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I
Um
don't want to do nothing but be dramatic and turn into a bird and be up in his trees. And I love that for him. But Tracy
Nah.
just thinks that he should.
Suffer. All of them.
More angst.
Yeah.
Also.
All of them should suffer. That's what she thinks. So Bree doesn't then tell Erebus that Natasha didn't succumb to her blood. But like he almost certainly knows that. Like
I was wondering about. You think he knows that?
I think he does. I I don't think that the order does. And I understand why
But
Bree
in the
doesn't
same
say
way that
anything
like Lark
because
knew that that Cell was gonna skip out and didn't say nothing, he kind of was
well,
like,
not quite in the same way. I think because I think Bree doesn't say because the way that she knows that that didn't happen is because of the when she broke that mesmer.
yeah.
And that is not an open secret that she can break mesmer. That's still like maybe three people know that. Um, so that's why she doesn't say anything because she's like, he does not need to know that about me. But he might just because of who you know what I mean. He might actually know that
Mhm.
because of like his own Demon King
Relationships
shenanigans.
and
Like he might actually have a better idea of what that like magic looks like.
mhm.
But I feel like he must know because I feel like at the end of the book, she has him send Cell to her.
Mm.
That's like one of their like one of the conditions of like
The
the
conditions.
oath that she makes to him or whatever. Um,
I think
which means that he
so.
had to know where she was and that she was like not in a shadow hold somewhere. So I don't know. I don't know what they think happened to her. Like maybe did she fake her death or like I don't really know what the like story. I can't remember. I feel like they might have said that she died when they were like sneaking around in Legendborn. Yeah. I don't know. Um okay, and then there's a moment where so then Bree says Erebus cared for Cell's mother and he seems to care for Cell too in an almost fatherly way, maybe even more than Cell's own absentee father. So that's also it's giving hint.
Yeah.
Um
Foreshadow.
yeah. Um so then Bree I take a deep breath and recite my way through the panic. Keep my friends safe, keep them from harm, no more deaths, no more damage. Get through the right, then get through the rest. She got her little affirmations. But also again, none of that is about like become the king and like save the order from the night or whatever. Like that's not she's like, my friends,
Yeah.
no more deaths, and I'm gonna get through this right. Like she's again like her priorities and the order's priorities are different.
Not the same.
She then kind of like like kind of has a moment where she wishes that Nick was there because she could kind of tell him that she understands him more. Um, before when everyone thought that he was a scion of Arthur, he had a lot of like he was just really conflicted about around that. And was often like there was always like this anger that he kind of just had and like harbored that Bree didn't really get. But now being in that position, she kind of understands. So she says the slow building anger born from carrying the burdens of a power you don't fully possess. Because it's like again this little
Ooh.
like this circle of like I'm the king but I can't do these things because y'all are in charge and because of all this other stuff. And it's like but I don't care about all this other stuff. I just want to do what I know is right or just what I want to do. um so they get to the lodge. And the regents turn up with all their seneschals. So we've met all the other like regents, but the other Erebus introduces the other two mage seneschals. So there's Tacitus, who's the master of mesmer. He's from Italy. And he's the one who they when they were at the funeral and they're like, "Oh, we can offer the services for you to like forget your kids." So
The
he smiles at Bree and she immediately hates
way he
him.
said
She's
that.
just like, yeah, but that's kind of what they said. Um,
That's
but
what
yeah,
they
so
said, but it's just
yeah. So yeah, he smiles at Bree. She immediately hates him. She's just like, I bet you he's the traitor. Um, and then he kind of sees Erebus looking at him and is kind of guesses that Erebus is thinking the same thing, but she's definitely projecting. And also the gag is they're all traitors. So what can you do? And then there's Saren, who's master of constructs. He's from the Pacific Northwest. And he has these flames at his fingertips that never go dark. So he's just like always has these like his ether at his fingertips. He can create unbreakable ether constructs that only he can change the shape of. So they all kind of like stand there waiting for her. And then Bree, this chapter ends with Bree addressing the honored regents and seneschals. She says, I declare myself eligible for the Rite of Kings by way of bloodline and invite you to bear witness to the return of our king, Arthur Pendragon, once again awakened to lead our table and order to victory in the Shadowborn Holy War. It's so much.
It's so much. And it's also like there just isn't there's no satisfying option for Bree,
Mm,
which I hate because she doesn't deserve this level of fuckery.
yeah.
Um, so okay, so we're in chapter 12. The Merlins, a few Merlins go into the cave and do a final sweep while the regents speak to Bree outside. And Aldrich apologizes to Bree for his words at the ceremony. And Bree, like, has practiced her response and like says this very much like, "Oh no, I was with you. Like we were both playing our roles, right?" So she says she understands Aldrich's strategy. She actually like cuts off his apology to kind of explain the strategy that her and William talked about, to be like, this is what I understand to be that happened, and that
Hmm.
her outburst, and he was like, oh, okay, well, I just figured because of your outburst, and she was like, well, I just figured that within that strategy, Nick Squire Select would be shocked and disbelieving that his King's Mage would be a traitor, and so then the other regents and seneschals seemingly buy her story and are impressed
Right.
and are like, oh, she's smart, um,
It's
which is
just all
like a
fake.
double-edged, like,
So
it's so fake, but
it's so
it's also
fake.
like, do they actually believe her? Are they saying that to placate her or patronize her, or are they just actually shocked that she would have a strategic
Right.
mind as well? It's probably a little bit
Hmm.
of both, depending on who it is. Um, Sestra then talks about how um, they will find Davis and he will pay for his crimes. Some of the other regents and seneschals are like, do you actually think he's guilty? And she's like, we have all the evidence that we need to prove his guilt. And then some other back and forth, and I forget who it is like, but he's so old, like he wouldn't be able to betray us to this degree. And Sestra explains and says like they have seen betrayals to this level before, but usually the oath will take the person and well or kill the person before they're brought to justice. And I think what's really interesting is we were talking about, I believe in like the first book in Legendborn, about the fact that like Dud Davis is kind of a extremist, and William kind of lays out like what or I think he explains to Bree like he wants to open the gates and stuff to remind the order of like what their purpose is and what they're there for, and like
Hmm.
kind of go back to that more traditional glory of killing demons, and like let's stop being so progressive and letting all these women have thoughts and positions of power and whatever. um there is a level of, and we kind of see this too when they check in on Fell and his and how he's doing with his oaths of like your intent helping. So they're saying like the fact that he kind of stepped in to help Bree, the fact that I'm saying that the fact that Cell stepped in to
Hmm.
help Bree, and the fact that Cell is like helping to protect the chapter is doing a lot to kind of keep his like oaths intact, because he's not protecting Nick, but he is protecting the chapter, right?
Hmm.
So there is this thought process or this belief that like So like in his mind and in his worldview, he's not actually betraying the order, and like that level of extremist fundamentalist kind of thought is probably keeping him safe.
Mhm.
Um, Not to say that he's not like a little bit, maybe his oaths are a little bit uncomfortable, he's not a little ticklish, but
Right.
for the most part,
He got a little cough.
he believes that, yeah, he believes that he's like doing the right thing and on the path to like keeping the order intact and safe.
Mhm.
So he's not, it's not killing him. It's just, I think, an interesting little kind of philosophical thought exercise
Mhm.
for everyone, just because Bree is about to take this big oath, and also like it's like her first actual oath that she's going to take.
Mhm.
Not that they realize it, whether they realize it or not. Like she's been shrugging, shaking oaths off left and right so far, but it's an interesting like philosophical thought because the regents are also oathed, right? And they're about to betray the crown
Mhm.
scion like big time,
Mhm.
but it doesn't, because of their beliefs of whatever, it's, they're not going to suffer ill consequences from it. That level of bending your beliefs or morals or your oaths to fit your beliefs and morals, whatever, is I don't know if I want to call it a loophole in the oaths, but it is something that makes the oaths kind of difficult to. It's very difficult to say like, um, if this then that type of thing, or
Yeah.
like, and it's also why it's easy to also use the oath to like blame Cell, right? Because like
Mhm.
in your mind, that is like breaking the oath or whatever. And so, oh, he's succumbing to blood. Because it's not very black and white. It's not clear of like if you do these things, right? Intention and circumstance stuff. A lot of that goes into these oaths, um, and then the consequences of breaking them. And so
Mhm.
they they have a few regents and seneschals who believe that like, or want to believe, I should say, that Davis is not as guilty as the evidence shows that he is, because he has not succumbed or hasn't been killed by these oaths, while at the same time they know that what they're about to do to Bree. So it's just like,
Right.
mm.
And honestly, it kinda shows that, like, they can find those loopholes. I don't know if that's what taught them that, because they've been around for a
Well, and
while, but
I think the thing is that, and I think the thing that makes it so tricky is that, like, to them, it's not a loophole because they fully believe. Well, I don't know
mhm,
all of them, but at least
that they're
that
protecting the
Davis, like,
order.
he's, yeah, he's not exploiting a loophole. He's doing what
Mhm.
needs to, he's Thanos with the shit. Like, he's the only one that has the fortitude to do what needs to be done. He is inevitable, right? Like,
Mhm.
um, and he's the only one that can get them back on the path of righteousness or whatever the fuck.
Mhm.
Amani says very Aegon coded. I don't know what that means, but I'm
Oh, that was
assuming
from
y'all
earlier.
do. Oh, okay.
That was about, Nick and Bree's anger at being king, but not really having the power of king.
Cool. I
Um,
thought Aegon was some sort of wizard. That's why I thought it was
no,
about
Aegon
these
is,
oaths.
it's
It's,
Game of Thrones, but there are, like,
oh, it is
30,000
Game of
Aegons.
Thrones.
But it's the Aegon from House of the Dragon, the older one,
I just,
because it's
but
about 5,000 Aegons in the World of Ice and Fire.
it's a very popular name. It's like Thomas. Anyway, so the Merlins come in, let them know that like all is good. They go into the cave, and then they stand around in a circle, and Bree um, takes off her shoes to go into the like water and get to the island where Excalibur is, on this platform. I don't know why that was funny to me, but the taking off your shoes I feel like was funny. I was on, or like put some wellies on. You knew what it was. just to be pulling a sword in your bare feet. It's just funny to me. I don't
Yeah.
know. She's got this whole like she thought really
Outfit.
long and hard about like the outfit she was gonna wear. She's got like the riding pants and the tunic and whatever, and then she just got her toes out. And I just, you can't go into a warehouse without closed-toed shoes, right? It just
No.
feels like
That's so funny.
you cannot proclaim or get oaths to go to start a war and go to
With
battle
no shoes on.
with no shoes on, with your toesies in. Just it don't make no sense. Y'all might not have found that to be a weird thing. I found it to be very strange. So then they're talking about this oath, right? And how what's supposed to happen, and she's been studying for it and stuff. It is also worth noting that this has not happened in so long that they have like notes, like the regents
Right, they pull
and
out a
the
piece of paper,
seneschals who
and
all
Bree's
have a part of
expected
this.
to
They
have
pull
this
out, they're pulling out
memorized,
post-it.
bro, and she got her part
Right.
memorized, and they pulling out pieces of paper, notebooks even.
Yeah. Like, okay, well, according to our histories.
Right.
Um, so they start saying these oaths, and Bree internally knows that she can resist the oath, but she's like reminding herself that she is going to take this oath. This oath
Mhm.
she actually does want to like fully bind herself to.
Mhm.
As they start doing it though, it's painful. And so then she has to like remind herself, no, 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 do not resist this. Because like
Right.
for her, I'm not gonna say her entire life, but like it has become kind of second nature to kind of shake off magic
And
and
it's
to
also, like, it's what her like, what the bloodcraft is for, like, it's to
it's
protect
for,
against
yeah.
the order and these things, so, like, it's kind of like 2 parts of her are, um, uh, just, like, the opposite of each other, they're kind of clashing against each other.
Yeah. So then as she finishes this oath, she gets swallowed up by this vision. Um, and she says that like there's no writing, there's no, like Alice and Will and her have been like studying this rite and like trying to figure out all this stuff, but like no one knows. No previous awakened Pendragon has said
What they
what
see.
happens after this. They kind of like just it's this is the part that's kind of really unknown to her.
Mhm.
And so um she finishes the oath and is swallowed up by this vision, and it's the original round table full of the original knights. And she looks down and she sees herself, but then layered on top, she sees Arthur, but then she sees herself. And so she tries to shake him off, but is unable to. And they're kind of like,
She's kind of thinking of it as the possession, like, from the end
yeah,
of from the battle, like, initially, she thinks that he has control over her body, um, and she can't communicate with him. So she's thinking that, like,
yeah,
somehow, like, she can't take the control back because he can't hear her, um, and it freaks her out, which is real, even though that's not quite what's happening,
yeah.
but
It's
she
more that they
understandably
are both
panics.
existing at the same time in the
Yeah.
same place. And she's able to kind of be a little bit removed. I'm thinking about Doctor Strange, where they do the astral plane type of thing.
Mhm, mhm.
But she's not able to fully remove herself from it. And so she does, like you said, she freaks out a little bit, but then she decides that she's just gonna like push on. And she's speaking to the knights, and then and saying, but the knights hear Arthur's voice. But then again, it's kind of going into this like she's fading, her strength is kind of fading in and out of like um
And she's
in
also
her senses
like,
of who is kind of more prominent.
yeah, and I guess
Go ahead.
for me, I kind of thought of it as, like, this is, like, the space where their spirits, uh, come together
Live.
or like where they
Yeah.
live. So it's like it's not that Arthur is possessing her in this moment. It's literally that she's coming into the place where they live. Like, so of course you come
Yeah.
here and you look like Arthur. Like it makes sense and that you speak in his voice because you're here to like claim his spirit, really. Um but she does not want his spirit. She don't want it anywhere. Understandably, because he's the worst. Like, she doesn't actually want this, and the experience of being possessed by him was so traumatizing that she's, like, really having to, like, fend off a panic attack. And it's, like, one of those things where it's again, it keeps, like, underscoring that, like, she does not want to be here. This is not something that she wants to, like, do for a lot of, like, really valid reasons. And so it's like she's putting herself through more, like, trauma essentially in order to, like, get to these
Yeah.
other things that
She's
she
like
does
fighting
want.
against yeah, she's fighting against something that is just really kind of almost inevitable. And um it's sad too because when we the further we go along in here, you do see Arthur messing with her and like playing games, but this is just not one of those times. But so
Mhm.
you like um I'm like, I don't want to stop you from fighting against it because you need to constantly be fighting against it.
Right.
But also, this is actually what it is. So the knights start talking to her, and she sees Owain and Boras,
I think it's just bores.
Bors. Um, and then finally, Lancelot responds, and Nick is like, or sorry, Bree is looking at Lancelot and seeing bits of Nick,
It
and she's doing a little bit of lusting. She's
yeah,
like, it's
it's
not him,
really interesting
but
though
I can,
because it feels like she talks about how, like, the feeling is layered. Like, it's not just her feeling for Nick, it's also
mhm.
Arthur's feeling for Lancelot. Like, there's it
Yeah.
yeah, it's levels to it. 'Cause she's like, "Yeah, my heart is quickening," but it's also Arthur's heart. Like, it's not just me.
Mhm.
And especially because she's looking at Lancelot and she's seeing, like, physical resemblance, but she's not physically seeing like, Nick isn't there, it's literally Lancelot
It,
up
it's
to
literally Lancelot,
until
but she's
until
seeing
a
kind of
point.
like, it reminds me a little bit of, and this is out of pocket, and I apologize, but like the first time I saw like pictures of Malcolm X, and I was like,
Oh god.
listen,
That is not where I thought this was going to go.
Malcolm
That
was kind of
wasn't the name
fine.
I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting. It wasn't
Malcolm
that.
had a
It's
long,
not to say that Malcolm X wasn't fine. I just wasn't
yeah.
expecting that to be what you were talking about.
I mean, I could have gone with some other folks, but like I don't know their name. Like there's that one like hot outlaw cowboy picture that was floating around. I don't know that dude's name. I know the first time I saw Malcolm X that I was looking at Malcolm X and I was like, wow, wasn't expecting that. It probably wasn't the first time I saw Malcolm X. It was the first time when I was of an age to
To
recognize that he was
record yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and my brain went pause on the civil rights for a second. You see the bone structure there? I see why he started his career as a pimp.
Oh my god.
I makes sense. Um, that's what Bree's doing
Maybe.
to this night.
Maybe so. I just think it's some
Um,
I think Arthur and Lancelot were in love. That's where I'm at.
well,
But maybe
I was
both.
thinking this too, but I was also thinking like there is also something about like I have like my friends in like college and stuff. I'm not in love with, but when I see them, I'm like, oh shit, it's about to go down. Like
Sure. I'm not like
adventure is going to be had, foolish decisions will be made.
and I don't think that Tracy necessarily makes it like explicit either way,
Yeah.
but she does make it very explicit that they're I mean as to like the full nature of their relationship, but she does make it really explicit that they are bonded in a way that is, like,
Yes.
and I don't know, I mean, maybe there is some kind of magical component to it, I guess. I didn't really think about that. Um, because it's like when she first sees, like, or there is a magical component in terms of like Bree and Nick because their whole kind of dynamic is informed by Arthur and Lancelot, but it's not clear if Arthur and
Mhm.
Lancelot are bonded in a different way or like even oathed in a different way than like just this is because of their spirits. This is the nature of their relationship and it's passed down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it
Okay.
does. And I don't think that we're supposed to know. I think it's something that
Yeah.
you kind of like she probably wants you to bring a bit of your own self into or what you think. But I
And
do
it's
think
something we
that
can
there
probably possibly could find out later. Like,
later, yeah. But I do think that there is like I'm not like discounting a romantic portion within
mhm,
Lancelot and Arthur's relationship, but I also think like at this point when they're like around the round table and stuff, again, I'm going back to like these are the prototype of patriarchal
right.
ain't shit men. They are like ready for battle, and I think they have that battle lust thing going on together too, where it's like, oh, you and me, we about to hit the clubs,
The
but the
clothes
clubs
of
are actually
murder.
clubs of murder. Um, we about to get bucked on some demons, like it's gonna be lit, and then we're gonna go to a a brothel afterwards. Like it's we
Oh
just
my
gonna
god.
tear we gonna tear the night
Turning
up
up.
type of stuff.
Oof.
This is his ride or die, and so there's that level of like whatever.
Yeah.
So there's that happening, and then there's a little bit of lusting, and then she reaches out and touches his hand. Because this is where I'm like, I don't know about the like love thing, but also Lancelot could just be like, in public, my dude, like keep it cool.
I thought,
He's
you
like,
know, he
right? You know, we got an audience. The whole table is here. What is she doing? Touch like
we touching
caressing me
hands
like this, touching hands. What's going on, fam? Shh, put that shit in the house. But then he starts to kind of like fade in and out as well, and then kind of like so a little bit of what Bree was seeing with herself and Arthur, and then he coalesces and she looks at him and she says Nick, and it's Nick looking back at her with his blonde hair and everything. He's like Bree,
looking back at her
and
with
that's where
his
we end.
blonde hair. That's where we end. That's the end of
I
the
don't know if
section too.
Lancelot is blonde. I don't think he's blonde, right? Because I
I
think
can't remember.
they make the distinction that like his
They definitely
blonde
have the
hair.
same eyes. I don't know,
Yeah,
but yeah, I can't remember the hair. He has on a
I
helmet
just know that
in
she
this
makes a point
vision.
to be like she makes a oh okay because she makes a point to
Well,
be
no,
like the
I'm saying
blonde hair
Lancelot,
seems
yeah,
more
Lancelot has a helmet on, so but then when Nick
yeah
shows up, he doesn't.
yeah. So,
I just imagine from Nick's point of view, what does he do? Is he sleep? Like, what is he doing? And then suddenly
I
he
also like
just
I messaged you and Portia this not while we were recording, but I am not a person who is like, oh, your boy's a little sassy or whatever. Like, I don't believe in that. Like, men can't have a wealth of, like, they always have to be like strong and manly men and like whatever.
Mhm.
But, and I can't remember what Lancelot's like special thing is. I think he's just like a military strategist and he's very smart and charismatic and like, um, people follow him. I think that's kind of, I don't know if that level rises to the level of like special enhanced ability, but um, Nick is the awakened scion of Lancelot, and he is still a damsel in distress. And if that is not unattractive,
That's so
I
funny.
don't know what is.
I don't think that it's his father.
I
And we
get that,
also don't know because I mean, we'll get there because there is a moment
but I just see him just being shunted around, crying, being like, "Daddy,
see, and
why?
I don't think it's all of that. But
But
again, I
Daddy,
think that
why?"
we will see more of what I feel like the Oathbound
Yeah,
synopsis makes it seem or I don't. I'm curious how she's doing it. Like, um, because we know that Bree is like with the Demon King, but I'm curious, like, if we're gonna see like his point of view or something, or if it's gonna be still all told from like Bree's point of view. But we're supposed to see more of like what he, not necessarily what he was up to, but like at least get a better idea of what is going on in his head. So I doubt he was sitting there, although it's a hilarious image because he's still definitely a
I'm just
damsel.
like,
This is his damsel era, and that's that's okay.
I need you to stand up,
All right.
buck up.
On that note, who is your MVP?
I made Cell my MVP. I was going back and forth between Cell and Lark.
Mm,
I
I
feel
think I was
like
similar.
now more than ever, I like to think that Lark is like laying there concussed and being like, you know what? Cell wasn't wrong. And he is dramatic, but he wasn't. I told that bitch to stay put. Why is she,
Why is she jumping out of the
like,
armored car?
I could have kept that shield up a little bit more if I wasn't so busy looking at her bust out of that car.
Oh my
God
god.
damn. Um, I ended up with Cell just because, like, he's gone. They don't have him, and he's still. And he also knows that like nonsense is afoot. He knows that like people are pulling strings. Like I'm sure he is skeptical about the attack by the lodge, just as he might be skeptical about this attack. But doesn't matter. Bree's in danger. Got to do what I got to do.
Mhm.
And then I get there, and she still don't listen to me. Her ass is annoying, but her ass is my responsibility,
Mhm.
and I gotta save it. So,
Yeah.
because I just don't
He
know. I mean, obviously, I'm not a fighter. I'm not a knight. I'm not a king's mage. Don't ask me. But if I was, I don't know that I could continue to put myself on the line
for somebody who doesn't
for someone
listen.
who is, yeah. I mean, I just saw those Secret Service people like literally jumping on top of that dude, and I was like, ooh, couldn't be. I'd lose my job.
Um, so I also made Sal my MVP. Kind of similar reasons. Like he again, like he kind of chose her safety over his. Um, and just the whole like his whole little entrance. It was a good one. As hilarious as he is, his dramatic little self. It was a good entrance. He
I'm
did what
glad that
needed to
you
be
find
done.
it
It was
good
it
because
was
I find it. I love Cell. That's my baby, and I'm gonna stick beside him. And it was good in turn. It was very cinematic, but
yeah.
it was
And I
also
think,
very
like, those are
dramatic for
kinda
no
my
reason.
favorite parts, like, I do really like the way that Tracy's able to, like, describe things in a way that you can really see them, and that you can see them, like it's cinematic, you know what I mean? Like, you can really, like, um so, yeah. So in some ways, it's also kind of a MVP for Tracy.
True.
Benched?
I had to give it to the order. This is one of those things where it's like we're at the point where I do believe that Erebus and Erebus as Demon King type of, or maybe not Demon King, but Erebus as Seneschal or whatever, planned this attack to lure Cell out and to go and to further what he wanted. And so, yes, but again, why was Lark the only mage in the car? Why was, and I understand, and I know because the plan is, but that's the plan. So then the whole order has to fit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause they can't be like, oh well, Erebus was pulling the strings to do this thing because there should have been a check or a balance. So one person can't do that thing.
Yeah.
And then the check isn't there because they are all trash.
Yeah.
So the whole order got
I
us
gave mine specifically to Erebus in this case just because he was the most visible or like more
there.
most or like physically there present. Um but I agree, like the order is definitely they're trash. But yeah, no, I gave it to Erebus this time. I think like because of the like what he's doing on behalf of the order and what he's doing on behalf of himself, I do like him as a character. Like I think that he
Yeah, he's
is
well
super
written. He's interesting.
he's interesting and like he's a little funny too, honestly. Like I think all the Merlins are just a little like hilarious. Like to an extent. Like they're all just like just a little bit comical. To me, not that they're written that way, but to me. Um yeah. So that's where we're at. Thank y'all for listening. Just a reminder, like we want to know your MVPs and bench too. If you're listening on Spotify, there's usually like a Q&A that you could put your votes in for the episode, or you can fill out our form which is in our show notes. Just click the link and then add your thing and we'll tally it up at the end of the book, to see who won and who lost the full book. But yeah,
And you
in the
can put a
meantime,
reason why, and we can
yeah.
read it out so you can feel a part of it. Like, you know, Mom,
Mhm.
this is an interactive conversation. This is a book club.
Yeah. Um so yeah, and then we will be back next week to discuss chapters 13 through 15.
Well, Bayana will be back. I will be at the WNBA All Star game, just so y'all know. Wizard Team is a part of the Black Nerds Create Collective. If you want to keep up with our content, you can check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com. Follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Wizard Team Pod and at Black Nerds Create.
Bye.
Bye.